It is time Black women reclaim their femininity. My name is Zukiswa, and I'm so excited to do this video because it's long awaited. Firstly, when I speak on femininity, this is not about a pretty soft voice and pink dresses. We're seeing a lot of women performing femininity in hopes to get a certain outcome, whether typically it's related to getting a certain type of man. So you are acting and you are playing a role to get what you want. And I think that can be quite detrimental. I'm talking about femininity in its fullness. If I'm looking down, it's because I got all these notes. I think we do a disservice to the feminine when we fixate on the outcomes rather than what it takes to get there. So let's define femininity from the textbook definition. This is a set of attributes, behaviors, and roles traditionally associated with girls and women, often emphasizing traits like nurturing, sensitivity, and cooperation. While rooted in biological factors, it is largely a social construct that varies across cultures and history. Masculinity is a socially constructed set of behaviors, attributes, and roles traditionally associated with boys and men, often emphasizing strength, competition, independence, and emotional control. So there is both nature and nurture when we discuss femininity and masculinity. In a world that holds some misogynistic values, and for a long time, women having been repressed, this also plays into how our femininity has been repressed. And that's why it tends to be limited to the performance of it rather than the embodiment of it. And that's a product of toxic patriarchy. I am not against patriarchy. It's not about these systems, it's about the people. And it's really about my worldview. I think it's important I say that so that you understand my angle when it comes to this work is I believe in repairing the Black nuclear family. I believe that there is so much power in our love and in our unity. I believe that men need to play their position as leaders and protectors, and women need to play their position as nurturers, as teachers, as helpmates, which I know typically a lot of women have a resistance to because they somehow see the feminine role as less than. When in fact, it's not less than. Men and women, they are equal in value, but I don't even like to focus on this whole equality thing. I think it's not a healthy, typically it's something pushed more so by the feminist ideology to say we should be doing the same things. And that's not what I'm trying to say. When I say we're equal, it's in value, but we are still different in terms of our roles on this earth. And we shouldn't aspire to be one another. We shouldn't. Femininity has been colonized by the West. I am dropping a video. By the time you see this video, probably tomorrow, I will have dropped this video. I'm dropping a video tomorrow called The Colonizer's Playbook, which I think will be super, super interesting. And it links to this, how the West and a certain demographic, the palm-colored people, perverted good things. And part of the perversion is our masculinity and our femininity. Those have been perverted. So it's just been reduced to softness, submission, appearance. And even if we want to go really a bit further, especially in the West, when you look at the beauty standards, it also kind of links to more PDF aisle associations, the obsession with virginity, the obsession with purity and hairlessness and stuff like that. You know, it does go a little bit too far to the left. That's the perversion of it. But that's not the reality of it. In many African societies, femininity was powerful, functional, spiritual, and socially integrated, not something separate from leadership, economics, or authority. So let's go. We're going to do a little breeze through of the timeline, how we've gotten here to 2026, where Black women are very out of touch with their femininity. So the earliest evidence of feminine symbolism in societies in Africa is Kemet, ancient Egypt. Femininity was integrated into cosmology and state structure. Goddesses such as Isis represented magic and spiritual power, fertility and motherhood, protection and kingship, restoration. Women could own property, initiate divorce, and hold religious and administrative influence. Femininity in pre-colonial sub-Saharan African societies. Across many African societies, femininity was not a fixed identity, but a social and functional role within community systems. For example, when we look at West Africa, among the Yoruba, femininity was tied to spiritual and economic power. And that's something I've noticed that now when we look nowadays, women aren't actually appreciated for their spiritual aspect. And I get it, because a lot of women are too whimsical to the point where it's not even productive. But women also in the Yoruba culture, they participated in trade and market systems, religious leadership roles. Spiritual figures included deities such as Oshun, associated with fertility, sensuality, diplomacy, and wealth attraction. So the feminine energy was also just reverenced more. Feminine energy was reverenced a lot more, appreciated in its vastness. The feminine is about creation. So anyone who's creating anything, whether it's music, art, an idea that is then birthed into reality, that is the feminine. That's using the feminine energy. Whereas the masculine actually then builds and executes. Among the Igbo, some communities had flexible gender systems, including women holding social roles traditionally coded as male in certain contexts. Southern Africa, so Bantu-speaking societies, Miam Shona, femininity included central roles in household economy, agriculture, food systems, childcare, strong connection to lineage and ancestral continuity, participation in spiritual systems, including mediumship in some traditions. I think of Mbuya Nehanda. She was the one who prophesied in Zimbabwe that the colonizers would come and do what they did. And the men didn't listen, or anybody for that matter didn't really listen. I don't think so. And she got hanged. Anyway, also femininity being expressed in the Himba culture, which I believe is in Namibia, was expressed through ritual body practices, so skin and hair care traditions linked to identity and cultural belonging rather than beauty standards. So the spiritual structure across many African traditional religions, which again, through colonization has been wiped out. So we've been disconnected from so much of ourselves, and so much of ourselves has been distorted and broken apart and perverted. Why am I talking about this knowledge? It is for awareness. When you are aware of your reality, where you come from, it's not to victimize you. It's not so we can go and cry in a corner. But when you understand where you're coming from, you understand why you stand here today. What has made you who you are. And then that can then help you in going forward. Sometimes the healing is just the knowledge. Femininity was linked to earth, water, fertility, and ancestral connection. Social and spiritual roles were often integrated, not separated. Now, and I think when you look at a lot of previous, like, pre-colonial, like, indigenous cosmology, the masculine and the feminine were seen as complementary forces. It wasn't one above the other or any of that. It didn't need to be. You just reverenced and respected each other. It's only in today's really perverted world that we are trying to one-up one another. So we're going to go to the West, the impact of slavery on Black femininity. During the transatlantic slave trade, African women were forcibly removed from cultural systems, gender roles were disrupted due to forced labor conditions, and women were subjected to sexual violence and exploitation. The main outcomes was the breakdown of the traditional family, development of survival-based gender expressions, and emergence of stereotypes, strong Black woman, hypersexualization. So post-emancipation and segregation era, during Jim Crow laws, Black femininity became shaped by racial exclusion and labor demands. Many women worked as domestic laborers and primary earners. During the Harlem Renaissance, Black women expressed femininity through art, fashion, performance, and intellectual culture. Then we go to the post-colonial and diasporic shifts. Africa, post-colonial context. Colonial systems altered or reinforced patriarchal structures in many regions. Some indigenous gender systems were replaced or reshaped by European legal and religious frameworks. So we've not been operating in our own system for a long time, and unfortunately, Africans don't really want to reclaim it, generally speaking, of course. For the Caribbean, plantation economies reshaped Black womanhood around labor, resilience, and survival. Cultural expression, dance, music, aesthetics became central to identity formation. And then, in the United Kingdom, the femininity influenced by migration, multicultural identity, and European beauty standards. And that goes for the West in terms of the beauty standards. And the intersection of African and Caribbean heritage with Western social norms. If you've gotten this far, I want to personally invite you to my Patreon. It is a place for feminine fellowship. It's just a space where women are going to hold you accountable. We're going to be honest. It's not a place where everyone's going to tell you that you are perfect and nothing is wrong with you. But it's also a place where people are being lifted up. As well as my ebook, The Sovereign Feminine Guide, which I think is a great addition to this video. It tells a bit of my story, and it goes into a guideline. Again, that's why I wrote it as a guide, because you have to apply what is relevant to you and your circumstance and your context. It's a journey. So it's a really productive guide. I highly, highly recommend it. So traditional femininity through patriarchy centers our subservience, being overly emotional, and so therefore we should sit down and shut up. And whilst I do think there is a time where we should sit down and shut up, God did give us 2 ears and 1 mouth. It's a good thing to do. It's been, again, distorted. It's been made out to be, it's not been healthy. It's almost like women have been devalued. And this has built up a resentment amongst a lot of women. Because when in regards to their femininity, because the femininity feels restrictive. It feels like I can't really be who I am. This is why I'm shifting the conversation from that traditional femininity where it's just very repressive. It's not like, again, it's performance, not embodiment. What I want to talk about is it's in you, not on you, to be feminine, to serve, to nurture, to love, to give. And this is what I call divine femininity, the original femininity before colonizers came and perverted it. I say divine femininity as well because as Black women, we know we were the first people on the earth, the first mothers on the earth. And that's why I think it's so interesting when you hear this conversation on TikTok of if you're lost, like if a white mother's child is lost, that child has been told to go and look for a Black woman. Even in our dysfunction, we are still the go-tos, the trusted individuals, because our maternal energy, our care, our love is that great. It runs that deep. So imagine when we heal and we do the work. I'm just saying. I think society is inverted. I think the social hierarchy positions Black women as the least desirable, least deserving, and we have internalized a false reality, and therefore it has now become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Again, don't take this as something to now cry about and feel less than. Knowledge is power. It is your awakening so you can shift into your divinity. When I talk about embodiment, this is your sensuality, your righteous anger, your throat chakra opening, your intuition. Those God-given traits, abilities, aspects of you that have lied dormant. So let's get into the benefits of what it is as a Black woman to be feminine. How does it benefit you? Number 1 is a healthier relationship with yourself. On a literal level of your physical health, your emotional health, your mental health will be better when you are in your feminine. You're not operating out of this scarcity, dysfunction, survival mode. Like, you are healthier. A lot of women are overweight and struggle with dis-ease in their body because they are out of their feminine flow state. Being feminine is a blessing because it allows you to be protected. And this is twofold. It allows you to be protected because you're more receptive to protection rather than becoming defensive, rather than thinking the man can't help you. You're more receptive to people helping you in different ways. But the protection is also being seen as worthy of protection because you allow yourself to be soft. You allow yourself to need a man. It doesn't offend you to say, I need a man. It gives you a social advantage. People gravitate towards that feminine, gracious energy, that kindness, that nurturing. And this can align you more so in friendships and in romantic relationships, which I know a lot of women want, whether they try to act like they don't want it, they do. Now, to develop your femininity, really it is a game of elimination. I think a lot of life, rather than learning, it's about unlearning a lot of the toxic narratives that you've been fed over time. Especially in this era of social media, and everybody is bitter and hurt, and they are spewing a broken gospel, a fractured gospel. Those words don't even work together. They are contradictory because gospel means good news and they're not saying anything good. So dealing with your mindset, your limiting beliefs, your mother wounds. As a woman, your femininity is directly tied to your mother. That relationship, you need to be honest and you need to examine it. And I talk about these things way more in the Patreon. We go really into deep discussions. So please, please, please join. Now, a big part as well, when it comes to healing, because that conversation is I find it to be quite an annoying conversation, the healing conversation. Honestly, when it comes to developing your femininity or healing, whatever it is exposure therapy. A lot of women are very avoidant. We talk about men being avoidant. A lot of women are avoidant when it comes to life, when it comes to living, experiencing. You only learn yourself, learn the environment, become a better individual when you expose yourself. Now, a big part of developing your femininity is dealing with your ego. I see this, the one thing that I see, especially with Black women, is the egos are too big. And your ego is stunting your progression because your ego makes you defensive. Your ego makes you not admit and take accountability. The past is the past. This is not about taking accountability, is not synonymous with blaming you. That is not what I'm saying. When I'm saying take accountability, I'm saying recognize that you are an autonomous individual. I may not have liked what the person did to me, but I control my response. I don't control the reality around me, but I control me. I control where I allow myself to be. I control how I allow myself to respond. Your femininity will preserve you, will protect you, and will lead you to still waters. To allow yourself to be what many of your ancestors couldn't be in the circumstances they were in is such a powerful and beautiful thing. You deserve it. I hope this video edified you, and until the next time, stay blessed.